All right, welcome to another episode of the NetOps Expert. I am extremely excited to be joined today by Tony Davis. He is a teammate of mine at Broadcom Software. Tony, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure thing, Jeremy. My name is Tony Davis. I've been in IT for right around 30 years total. And much like Jeremy, actually, the big majority of my time in the industry has been on the other side of the table, namely leading different IT operations units for large companies. I spent about 15 years with FedEx working on FedEx.com and have worked in other industries as well that are in the Fortune 100, sort of driving IT operations efficiencies. And so that the majority of my career was spent there. And as it relates to today, much like Jeremy, my time has been spent, a lot of it, dealing with what I would call observability. So whether that's application or network or a combination, that's probably the biggest part of my career. So nice to be here, Jeremy. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Once again, my name is Jeremy Rossbach. Like Tony, I am one of the evangelists here at Broadcom Software, and we're extremely excited to just be an evangelist. We believe in the solution, we believe in the benefits and the capabilities. And what we're going to talk about today is how we perceive the evolution of networking over the years, creating what is, a very complex operational challenge or challenges for the network operations teams today. And just put in some anecdotes, our previous careers, and how we tried to overcome some of those challenges, and then how we think the solutions from Broadcom can help our customers in this new evolution of networking as they go through many network transformations. So, Tony, like you said, we both have careers in IT, managing networks. In my previous career before Broadcom/CA Technologies, I ran data centers for startups to T. Rowe Price, Veterans Affairs, Northrop Grumman. So you and I have been in data centers for a while, but we haven't been in them recently enough to really see the significant complexity that's coming with network operations today, like software-defined technologies, cloud. When you and I are there, we'd rack and stack a device and set it and forget it and wait for something to break. So tell me what it was like to be at FedEx, especially on the application side of the house when it comes to working with network operations and network delivery of your critical apps.
Yeah, when the way that you put that, I was thinking back, sort of like you said about racking and stacking back in the early days. So not to date myself too much, but I still remember. I feel like things have come into a beautiful circle. So like, if I go back to the very early 90s, like the start, 1990, 1991. I don't know if you have these same memories, but I still remember installing Token Ring.
Oh yeah, networks. And remember Novell networks that used to run on LANs. Yep,
exactly.
Yeah, and group-wise and all that.
And I think that's what has struck me, probably the same as you, is that if you think back to those days, the network was the business even back then, because we were starting to see that this connectivity gave us unbelievable options for business. And then it's interesting. So what happened was, I clearly remember in about I guess it would have been about 1999 maybe, we had a point of sale, a project for a digital point of sale for our FedEx stations. And we had connectivity, of course, nailed to like 100 locations around the United States. But we started having problems from each of these locations saying that, things are running slow now that you put in this fancy new digital point of sale. They weren't used to that, right? And, at the time, I feel like it shifted. This is something what you and I talked about before this. At the time, I feel like we shifted from everything being focused on the network to everything being focused on the application itself. And I still remember it was in that 2000, 2001 timeframe right there where I personally wrote some code for one thing I was working on that that it was called Measureware at the time. I think it was owned by HP at the time. This is going way back. But I remember writing code that measured the performance of the application itself and putting it in. This would have been before the APM type
Yeah.
years. That's what I think of in the past. Things have come full circle now because I think we're getting back to what really matters, which is having something for the network for experience. So
I like to say now that the network is sexy again, right?
yeah,
It really is, and it's so nice to be able to see how much people see how important the network is in network delivery. It's core of everything. I mean, think about, how did folks travel a lot this past Thanksgiving? They were on the highway, and that's their delivery method from getting to A to B. But speaking of some of those challenges, I'm going to share out my screen here, and you know this this diagram very well, this whiteboard that we call it. But why don't we just walk through it really quickly? And I'd love to hear your impact, or excuse me, your opinion of what's going on in this whiteboard. But also, I know you talked to a lot of Broadcom customers today. So maybe some anecdotes about some of the challenges you see our customers facing today as you have a lot of your workshops. So this was you and me back in the day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. It was beautiful. It was easy. You owned everything. You were the network god. You knew every single route. You knew every single device that was on your network. You wired every single Cat5, and it's nothing got by you. No blind spots, right? But unfortunately, with the evolution of networking, the impact of software-defined technologies, the fact that we're moving a lot of workloads out of those data centers that we used to manage into cloud providers, adopting SaaS applications like Office 365. Of course, the pandemic forced many, many hybrid working environments. And all of this is, these application experiences are delivered over unmanaged networks today, right? The internet or the cloud provider or the SaaS provider. You and I, recording this NetOps Expert video, we're not touching an enterprise data center at Broadcom. We're not. I mean, you're at home, I'm at home. I'm going over Verizon Fios, I'm going over some backhaul networks, and I'm going out to the Google Cloud and, Office 365. There's no data center there. That is entirely an unmanaged network path. How is Broadcom or my help desk going to help me troubleshoot something when they cannot see even one hop of this type of application environment? Actually, let me back up. So right there, I think that you and I think this cross is very powerful, right? So tell me what you think, and tell me some of the conversations you've had with your customers.
Well, I'll give you a conversation that happened extremely recently, maybe 3 weeks ago. For our customers out there or whoever's watching, Jeremy and I hold what we call observability type workshops. So we go to a client, we work with them not on just their Broadcom products, but their other products as well, to give them a good observability platform. And one of the recent workshops that we held was with a large financial services firm. And this firm, it was eye-opening for me because part of the workshop is to get a view of what they see right now. Do they feel like they have great observability right now, especially for their network? And the cross that you've drawn here that we put up, they felt so good on the horizontal cross. So like everything that was at their corporate network, they felt strong. They had our NetOps tool for their corporate network, and they felt good about it. And they had several people who were trained to use the tools, so they felt great. But part of the workshop asked, okay, let's move away from your physical locations and let's talk about, for instance, like either your cloud presence or your SaaS business services, and what your network experience is like managing that. And I'll tell you, the look on the faces of there were two managers in there for the network and the cloud space. And the look on their face, it was like, well, we don't feel comfortable that we have the right visibility when it comes to our cloud services and our cloud providers. And I thought that was interesting because this is this is a fine company, a large financial services, and they still had questions when we went to the vertical line that you drew right there. So I thought that'd be the best way to answer you is give you that example from a customer from just a few weeks ago.
I mean, who has the visibility, right? I mean, you and I know before the pandemic, cloud adoption was happening. We were using SaaS, but, the pandemic expedited the visibility challenges that are now inherent in every single network operations teams today. I mean, when you send 90, 95, 100% of your workforce at home, it completely changes the network path of how they access your resources now overnight. Absolutely. So, who has that true visibility right now? So I'm so excited that we can help those customers out there overcome some of these challenges, like, SaaS applications. I was using Slack today, and I was trying to add a bunch of users to a Slack channel, and I didn't want to do it one by one. I wanted to do it via an email PDL, and couldn't figure out how to do it. And I called our help desk, and they actually said, we can't help you because this is a SaaS application. You have to contact somebody else. And while this isn't a network blind spot, it just proves the challenge of having disparate solutions today that we're consuming without having that true visibility into all of it, right? So network delivery blind spots. Of course, we access SaaS applications via the internet. The internet is one of the biggest network delivery blind spots. SD-WAN, one of the hottest software-defined architectures being deployed today. I'm sure all the customers that you have talked to, including me, are thinking about it or have deployed one or even more SD-WAN technologies out there today. But Tony, did you know that Cisco ACI, which is Cisco's software-defined data center technology, can produce 23,000 events on the network? Yeah. Unless you try to have some type of monitoring tool that can consolidate that, correlate that, reduce the noise. Which one of our customers would want to deal with 23,000 additional events?
Yeah, like we don't already have enough events is probably what they'd say.
Exactly. And I think most of the folks out there watching this today, the Velo Clouds, the Fortinets, wonderful software-defined WAN technologies, and they provide very good visibility, but only edge to edge, right? A software-defined network path, the software-defined WAN network path starts at one edge of a network and ends at the other edge of the network to produce those encrypted tunnels. But you and I know there's a hell of a lot more devices inside of the data center that are part of that software-defined WAN network path that are critical to delivering that application, and visibility is needed there.
Yeah.
Sure. Tell me about some other customers you've talked to that are dealing with work from anywhere, work from home challenges when it comes to helping their users be productive, even though they don't see most of the network path their users are using now.
Yeah, and I think that's important because you mentioned earlier that the pandemic forced us into certain things, and even myself before I came to Broadcom. I can remember in my previous life from the time when the pandemic started, I can still remember the stress that we went under thinking about all of our employees switching from offices to going home. Yeah. And it started with basic connectivity and security, but to be honest with you, it turned into more of an experience nightmare. So like actually trying to manage and get the connectivity and the security in place, we got through that. But once it came down to people having problems, like I think you said earlier, you're going out Verizon, I'm going out C Spire, and we have nothing to do with our internal Broadcom network right now, really. And here we are. What if we have problems? Yeah. Who's going to diagnose that experience? So when I talk to customers now, especially in the workshop that we do, when I talk to customers now and we broach this subject, it's almost always related to we've got the basics down, but now we're having trouble with certain aspects of performance. And of course, that floods your call centers. That's like your internal call centers. It floods you, and your people have to spend time on that as opposed to maybe what their regular job is. So I hear that in the field. You probably do too.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned call centers because you've heard me tell this story 1,000 times, and I may have already even told it on a NetOps Expert episode prior to this. But even our call center agents are at home right now, right? So, like I tell this story, my kid, she's 22, have had to replace 3 of her bumpers on her car, and the next time it's going to happen, which I'm sure is going to happen, I don't want her calling our insurance company and speaking to an agent, and that agent have internet issues and can't get to the claims application that is in a SaaS environment.
Right.
I mean, she can't tell my kid, sorry, can you call back when my internet's working better and I can process your claim? The IT department at this insurance company is responsible for every single piece of infrastructure and network that claims application utilizes and that claim agent utilizes, whether they own that infrastructure or not. And that's a big pill to swallow right now for our customers. Yeah. Tony, you mentioned security, and I know a lot of our customers are talking about SASE and zero trust, and which is great, but you're talking about funneling all of your users through one point of degradation, which could be an edge security device, and who's to say that edge device, or if it's load balanced with another device, is having issues, utilization issues, right? And of course that's going to impact the user experience. You're going through a device that's pegged at 100% CPU utilization. You have any customers that are looking to SASE or zero trust, and what do those conversations sound like?
The most recent one that I had from a couple of months ago, the customer was looking at Cisco Umbrella. Yeah. But which I can certainly understand their point of reasoning. They wanted to get away from VPN. They wanted to, be able to still control certain scenarios that are happening for them a lot. This was an insurance company, but they were getting just absolutely obliterated with phishing. And that actually had even a little bit of an infiltration from a phishing attack. So that's what they were looking at. But to be honest, it's very much like the SD-WAN and the work from anywhere, where the real question here is, I'm losing visibility. Yes, I'm gaining security, but it's to a degree, it's at the sacrifice of the experience. And so that's the concern that this company was sharing with me, the lack of visibility and giving away that trust.
Yep. And none of our customers can sacrifice any type of disruption to the user experience today. It's we all go on the internet, we go on social media, and we complain. So brand protection is so important when it comes to user experience delivery. So, Tony, I wanted to show you something, and we can continue this whiteboard, but you and I know that we were recently named one of the top most powerful network management companies by Network World. And I wanted to mention just some of this article and what they point out that they look for when it comes to a network management company like Broadcom and what customers should look into. So, there's a great line here that just on a basic level, network management companies should offer the ability to ingest a ton of data, right? Whether it's logs, whether it's trace routes, whether it's events or other performance metrics that you and I are going to go into to help prevent outages or optimize the network and even optimize it through automation. So, I know you and I know that, what is very powerful about the solution, the network monitoring solutions from Broadcom, is the fact of the amount of data that we collect and the different type of metrics that we collect and how we use that data, and we clean it and we correlate it and we normalize it across dozens and dozens of vendor technologies out there today, because I'm not aware of a data center that is all just one vendor. Are you?
Yeah, right. No,
exactly.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So to be able to take all this information and present it in a way that our customers can digest it easily, understand the health and the performance of the entire network path and user experience, whether it's traversing old traditional network gear or crossing over into more software-defined technologies like software-defined data centers, software-defined WAN. The more information you have, the more you can understand and gain visibility and isolate the root cause of any type of degradation. So I don't want to go into all this, but I just want to illustrate along the entire network path what is capable of collecting and using for intelligent and actionable insights, right? Yeah. You and I are on our laptops. We have a Wi-Fi network in our environment. Who knows if your Wi-Fi network is configured optimally? Right. I mean, I think mine is, but who knows? Who knows if you have some process in the background of your laptop that's using a lot of CPU or memory right now that could be causing maybe you to hear my voice buffering in and out or something. Right. And then there's performance, right? There's underlay and overlay correlation of SD-WAN environments, which is very, some of the most exciting type of use cases we look to tackle with our customers today. And then, of course, network fault and visualization of relationships and dependencies and topology and configs. And then we get into the good stuff, Tony, right? The ability to understand what the performance of network devices are and what it looks like inside of the Verizons or inside of the, the CenturyLinks, and understand that hop by hop diagnostics, or when they make BGP route changes, right? Picking up on that and understanding that a route changes occur and what's the effect on the user experience. And right. Then cloud providers and SaaS providers, they have networks. We traverse those networks. What is the performance of the devices that make up the entire network path for users look like inside of cloud environments? And then flow and network synthetics to use to test the network, and active monitoring to isolate root cause of any hop in the new user experience path. And then finally ending up at the app and understanding what the application looks like, how it's behaving as it relates to network delivery. So, again, it's a lot to ingest here, no pun intended. A lot to take in when it comes to a simulated network path that you and I are looking at. But what do you get from this? And, what do you tell your customers when you talk to them about this?
Well, it's a big deal. What you're showing is a big deal to me personally, just from my own past experience, right? Because, just like you, I mean, I can look at everything that you're showing along this path and pick out the things that for me personally have been critical to know, but it's always been through a different set of tools. And then the real brain analytics or whatever, our teams would have to look through all of this and sort of put together what you've said. So the real power is when you bring this together and, like you said earlier, clean it. That's a big deal in the real world, is not just to have tons of data, but to have it clean. So I'm going to answer you a little bit with another comment from a customer, another financial services customer out in California. And this one said, I thought this was really astute. The VP that came to the first workshop said, we have tons of rich data. We collect so much data, it's unimaginable. But what we don't do well is bring the right parts of that data together to give us what you call observability, thus our observability workshop, right? And so through the course of going through the workshop, I kept that in mind, is that this person had said, we've got the data. We just don't have it coming together to give us what we would call observability. And so when I look at this, I just think about the products that we do have that you and I sort of evangelize about, and how we're able to finally bring everything together and do it right. I mean, heck, I can go back, to be honest with you, I can go back 10, 15 years and think of different promises made out in the vendor world, right? Of how I can bring everything together and it'll all make sense and you don't have to do any work, Mr. IT Director. Well, if you're like me, I found out that was not true. I'll just put it that way. But now to see it in action is exciting. And I think our customers feel the way, the ones that, when we do these observability workshops and we show how we can do this, it's actually exciting.
Yeah, I want to bring up 2 points. One is you mentioned about collecting the data and a customer that does collect a lot of data. I mean, network management, network monitoring's been around for decades. We know how to collect data.
Yep.
But what's the difference between network monitoring and network observability is what are you doing with that data?
Yep.
And then how quickly are you surfacing that information to the appropriate teams and surfacing the root cause so with minimal effort they can resolve an issue and move on to the next critical user experience issue. It's not about what you're collecting, it's what you're doing with what you've collected, those actionable insights. And I want to mention something else because I know I was recently told of a customer success story here. If you look at this simulated network path, you could have dozens of tools in each area collecting it, one for performance, one for fault, one for ISP visibility, one for local host metrics, APM. I know recently one of the customers that adopted the solution from us, they were able to reduce and retire 36 other redundant monitoring tools. I mean, what does that do for triage times? I can't imagine the amount of hours you spend in 36 different tools trying to isolate an issue when you have one tool doing it for you quickly. So another example of, the amount of data collected, what you do with that data to provide actionable insights, the tools reduction when you unify all this data into one solution. Exciting times for network operations today.
Yeah, and I think from just hearing you say that, it makes me think to what you said earlier, which I thought was cool, where you said, hey, this past holiday, how did the majority of people go get around and everything? Well, it was mostly using the interstate or freeway system, right? Or to some extent rail networks. But if you think about that freeway system, that's sort of to me like the network, right? So it's all those paths and people moving around for vacation. And back when you started this conversation, and I said, hey, you remember when it was token ring and we were racking and stacking? And I said, the network was the focus then. So to me, that interstate system started off as being the focus. But if you would have asked the Corps of Engineers or whoever built the interstate system, well, what's the experience of the people driving in their cars on that interstate system? They would probably tell you, well, I don't really know or care about that. I'm just here to put the streets down, the freeways down. But your last bullet on the screen right now shows user experience mixed in with our NetOps portfolio. Mm-hmm. And the reason that's so powerful and why I think you said the network is sexy again, and I agree, it's like we've come back around from just app focused experience. Now it's NetOps with experience, and now it's almost as if you could ask the Corps of Engineers, can you tell me the experience of every car that's driving on your fancy interstate system? And now they would say, yes, we can.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yep, that is very exciting. It's a great time to be in network operations today. It's a great time to do what you and I are doing, which is just evangelizing the capabilities and benefits of bringing technology together to help solve some of these challenges. You and I can geek out about this all day, but Tony, I just wanted to thank you for your time. I know you and I will be in Vegas next week at the Gartner IOCS show talking exactly about this end-to-end visibility. It's going to be a fun time. I know we're going to have a good time at the craps table too. Looking forward to that. But again, Tony, appreciate your time today.
Yes, this has been awesome, Jeremy. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I invite everyone to join us for the next episode of the NetOps Expert.